The products meeting your eyes in a supermarket aisle did not earn that spot by being good. They paid rent for it before you ever voted with your wallet. Supermarkets quietly engineer most of what ends up in your cart. That is the claim. So hold one question for the length of this video. When you walked out of the store last week, how much of what you bought did you actually choose? By the end of this, the aisle will look like a machine, and you will see every moving part. But before the machinery, walk into the store you think you know. A warehouse of choices, with an average supermarket carrying about 44,000 different items, one price on every tag, a layout that reads as storage, a loyalty card that reads as a thank you. Look closer. Shoppers are not naive. Most suspect the prices. In one regulator survey, 55% suspected that non-member prices get inflated during loyalty promotions. Yet almost nobody suspects the deeper machinery, and that gap between suspicion and reality is what this video is about. Because the machinery does not live in the prices. It lives in the shelf, the floor plan, and the card in your pocket. But shelf space is not given out. It is sold. The payment is called a slotting fee, and it moves before the shopper ever arrives. In regulator studies now more than 2 decades old, launching one new product nationally cost as much as $2 million in fees. That money buys position because position is what sells. Eye level and end caps go to whoever pays. Follow the money. And the fees do not stop at the door because retailers also charge for promotions, for advertising, for stocking. A grocer can earn more from the fees for carrying a product than from selling that product to you, which means the shelf is a market, and its best customers are brands, not shoppers. So who actually draws the map of that market? Therefore, meet the category captain, the least known job in your grocery store. The captain is a supplier, usually the dominant one, that designs the shelf plan for an entire category, and that plan includes its competitors' products. Read that again. The shelf your brand sits on may have been drawn by its biggest rival. Think about that. The captain's pen decides what sits at adult eye level, what gets more facings, what earns the end cap. And the captain competes inside the very category it advises, so the bias needs no plot. It is built into the seating chart. Retailers know this, which is why many now treat captain plans as a first draft and audit them against their own sales numbers. But the deeper point stands. The shelf is not a scoreboard of what people like. But the shelf is only where the machine begins, because the building itself is in on it. Start with the question every shopper has muttered at least once. Why is the milk always at the very back? It is not refrigeration logistics, and it is not an accident. Watch the floor plan. Dairy sits as far from the entrance as possible so that the one thing on everyone's list tows every shopper across the entire store. Your necessity is the tow rope. And while you are being towed, notice what the building withholds. There are no windows and no clocks, so the trip has no visible length. The route you walk was drawn before you arrived. Every extra step is another chance for something unplanned to fall into the cart. So, what exactly is on that route? Therefore, walk the route the way its designers do, starting with the stretch almost nobody has heard of. Retail researcher Paco Underhill named the first steps inside the door the transition zone, and shoppers effectively ignore whatever stands there while their senses adjust, which is why stores park carts, signs, and seasonal bins there instead of anything they need you to see. The store literally writes off its own entrance because it knows your attention has not arrived yet. Once your attention does arrive, the route spends it deliberately. Products on an end cap, the display capping each aisle, sell about 8 times faster than the same product placed mid-aisle. So, end caps line the exact path your milk run forces. The bakery sits near the entrance and its smell is vented into the store, because a hungry shopper is a generous one. Even the cart is part of the machine. Carts have tripled in size since their invention, and bigger carts mean bigger baskets. That is the answer to the milk question. The back corner is the engine that drives you past everything else. But here the industry tells a story about itself, and the story is too good. For decades, the favorite number in retail said that most supermarket buying, up to 70% of it, was unplanned. Add the lore that shoppers go emotional after 40 minutes in the aisles, and the machine sounds unstoppable. It is not. Hold that number in your hand, because it is about to break. When researchers finally measured real carts instead of repeating the legend, the machine turned out to be far weaker than its own marketing. And that honest measurement is where this story stops being a horror film and becomes something more interesting. But the measured truth is this. A study tracking thousands of shoppers across Dutch supermarkets found that only about 20% of purchases were unplanned. On most trips, the impulse count was 0. The legend was off by a factor of 3, and it flattered the people with shelf space to sell. Read it again. Not quite, because the same study also showed the machine's real levers. Who you are and how you shop moved impulse buying far more than any display did. Fast, list-driven shoppers bought 82% less on impulse, because a list is armor the root cannot pierce, which sharpens our opening question into its real form. The machine is not mainly adding items to your cart. It is deciding which brand, which size, and at what price inside the list you already had. That distinction matters because it moves the battle from the aisle to the brand, the size, and the price. And for that kind of steering, the store needed to know you personally. Therefore, the story moves to a plastic card and to the moment groceries learned your name. In 1994, Tesco piloted a loyalty card with a small data firm called dunnhumby. Clubcard launched the following year as the first supermarket loyalty card. What is the card actually for? Reviewing the pilot, Tesco chairman Lord Maclaurin told the analysts something that should be printed on every loyalty card. You know more about my customers after 3 months than I know after 30 years. That sentence is the whole trade in miniature. The discount buys your history, and your history is worth more than the discount. It works because behavior beats surveys. What you bought is what you are. The card exists because knowing you is the asset, and the discount is just its purchase price. Remember that sentence. But here is where everything you have watched so far turns inside out. Increasingly, the groceries are the bait, and you are the product. That flip happened because the data pays better margins than food ever did. Sit with that. Loyalty data now feeds an advertising industry called retail media. Grocers sell brands targeted access to you, down to what is in your cart and where you are standing. Brands were spending nearly $45 billion a year on it, and projections point far higher. Kroger runs its own data arm and ad business built on exactly this. So, the answer to what the card is for is this. It is the membership form for an audience being sold to brands. The supermarket's best customer is not you. It is whoever pays to reach you. And even the auction for that access repeats the shelf because bigger brands outbid smaller ones, the slotting fee reborn as software. First, everyone knows stores are designed to sell, so what exactly is hidden? The answer, people know the vibe, not the machinery. That a rival drafts the shelf, or that carrying fees can beat sales margins, are specifics most shoppers have never heard. Second, and stronger, the savings are real. The UK competition regulator checked tens of thousands of loyalty price products across 5 chains and found the discounts genuine, averaging up to 25%. So where is the harm? The harm is not the discount, it is the invisibility of the price you pay. A purchase history most shoppers never think of as an asset. Most shoppers suspect the wrong trick because the real one is upstream of the price tag. Therefore, judge the data trade by its results because the results are not subtle. By 1999, Tesco had doubled its pre-Clubcard market share and overtaken Sainsbury's as the largest retailer in the UK. Rivals copied the card because not knowing the shopper became the losing position. It spread. Today, that knowledge prices you personally. Tesco says its club card prices save members up to £385 a year, discounts computed from individual purchase histories. Which means the same shelf now quietly shows different shoppers, different effective prices. The discount is real, and so is the asymmetry. You see the price, the store sees you, and once the price depends on who is asking, a bigger question opens. What happens to prices when changing them costs the store nothing at all? But that future is already on the shelf, printed in electronic ink. Kroger, Amazon Fresh, and Whole Foods already use electronic shelf labels. Walmart's rollout cuts a price change from 2 days of sticker work to minutes, which means price becomes a live lever. In Norwegian stores, prices already move several times a day, because once the label is a screen, stability is optional. Senators Warren and Casey warned Kroger that screens like these enable surge pricing in emergencies. Kroger replied it has never surge priced. Minutes, not days. France now forces stores to sticker shrinkflation, shrinking packs at steady prices, with fines for chains that hide it. The finance minister called shrinkflation a ripoff. Carrefour claimed it pre-corrects shrunk packs with suppliers instead. So the answer to the last question is uncomfortable, because free repricing changes what a price is. Therefore, the verdict on the question you have been holding. The list you walked in with was mostly yours. But which brand you took, at which size, and at what effective price, that was heavily steered. The steering came from a sold shelf, a drawn route, and a card that knows you. And the steering itself became the business, an aisle that sells you to brands more profitably than it sells brands to you. See it now? The counter move fits on a sticky note because the measured data already showed it. Fast, list-driven shoppers cut the machine's take by 82%. Write the list, walk it fast, and the engineered aisle shrinks back into a warehouse. So that is how much you chose. Less than it felt, more than the legend claimed, and more still once you see the machine. And machines like this are steering far more than groceries, so watch this next. The machinery inside another business you use every day,